All right, well, we just saw Haunted House 2, the new Marlon Wayans spoof movie. The way the show works, we talk a little bit about whether we like the movie or not, kind of give you an idea of whether you should go check it out, and then we kind of dive into spoilers a little bit and talk a little bit more detail about things. So if you like what you hear at first and want to go see the movie, you can chop out at that point and go do that. Otherwise, you can listen to the rest of what we have to say. Speaking for myself, I saw the first movie. It's a spoof movie, and spoof movies are very hit or miss. There's ones that are fun, and there's ones that are just really obnoxious. Right off the bat, none of the jokes land, or there's 2 or 3 things that are funny, and the rest of it's not. There's very few spoof movies that you can think of that are, really consistently great. This movie's pretty good as far as all that goes. It does drag a little bit here and there when the whatever shtick they're doing wears thin. I think they did a good job of not recycling a whole lot from the beginning, from the first one. There is a lot that they bring back from the first one, but it's amplified or it's augmented in some way. And I thought that worked really well. What didn't work for me were, I didn't like how they seem to be bringing in, like, they bring Cedric the Entertainer back and they bring Gabriel Iglesias in. And it seemed like when those characters were on screen, the plot just sort of disappeared and they kind of improvised whatever they wanted to. So there'd be like these really fast cuts of cut to the same guy saying a joke and then cut to another joke and another joke. And he'd just list off a bunch. Like, there's a lot of lists of jokes in the movie. But having said all of that, I enjoyed it more than I expected to. I thought the first one was all right. And I thought the quality would go downhill. And I think, if anything, they've kept it pretty much where the first one was. And adding in some more, the first one was a lot of Paranormal Activity spoof. This one, they bring in some elements from particularly The Conjuring, a little bit of Insidious, and some of the newer horror movies. So that's kind of my thought.
Probably not my favorite comedy ever.
No.
But it's probably, I wouldn't say it's the worst one I've seen either.
No.
I haven't seen a lot of the movies that it's parodying, so there's probably a lot of references that were missed on me, at least, except for the most generic, like, this is obviously a horror trope that they're making a parody of. That's pretty obvious. And I didn't see the first one either, so I don't know that I really missed anything with that. I think the thing that got tiring to me the most, which is a little disappointing because normally I think Gabriel Iglesias and Cedric the Entertainer are pretty good stand-up comedians, and like Dale said, with some of their parts where they were just kind of spitfiring stuff, it felt like they had really hacky racial stand-up bits over and over, and like those can be done well, but I don't feel like they were done as well in the movie. Like, it was just
kinda
the same.
tired, huh?
Yeah, it got really tiring. Like, haha, we're gonna make fun of Mexicans, and now we're gonna make fun of black people, and now we're gonna make fun of white. But it wasn't in an interesting way.
The same old stuff.
I agree, and I just to throw in, when I saw the trailers for this, like, the trailer is just like 10 racist jokes in a row. Like, that's the trailer for this movie.
It's true.
And I was actually worried that they were gonna go further than that.
Yeah.
But also, in the first one, that's one of the bigger problems with the first one, is that there's just a lot of unnecessary race humor in it.
It's not offensive or anything like that.
It's just not funny. It's just not funny, and it's just sort of there for the sake of being there.
It's like stand-up material from 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah. Which they even like reference that at one point.
Yeah.
They're like, what other like phrases that are going out of style do you want to say now?
Great.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think?
I haven't seen the first one, so just seeing it fresh. I didn't really like it. It had its moments. Like I definitely laughed at some moments, but if I could compress all the stuff I liked, it would be 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
The main guy, Marlon Wayans,
Yeah.
is just like a little bit, intentionally obnoxious, but that would be better if he wasn't in every freaking scene in the movie.
Yeah.
And there's just too much of him. I got fatigue. I got Wayans fatigue, I guess.
Yeah.
And I was done after 40 minutes. I was like, oh my god.
I mean, he screams at the camera. That's what he does.
Yeah, I was just thinking. It reminds me, and Dale will know this. Like if you've done some of these exercises in improv class, a lot of times we do exercises with taking emotions from 1 to 10,
Overacting.
and like
Yeah.
there are good times to take it to 10, but you don't keep it at
You don't
10.
stay at 10.
Like you need to, and like it just Marlon Wayans was just like at 9 and 10. So for so much of the movie that it loses any kind of comedic impact after a while.
Yeah. So that's kind of our general thoughts on the movie. I don't know how much there really is to spoil as far as spoilers go. I mean, it's basically a parody of every horror movie that's ever come out. Specifically, like the first one, it specifically parodies kind of the found footage style of there's cameras everywhere and everyone's always carrying cameras around and shooting things. That's not as big a factor. I was kind of worried that they were going to do an almost beat for beat remake of the first one, that it was just going to be, more of the same kind of thing. And the first one, his girlfriend moves in with him for the first time, and they spoof the fact that in the first Paranormal Activity, the guy is kind of creepily filming everything that this girl is doing in his house. So that was kind of funny, and to watch that kind of turn on its head. That character is barely in this one, which is fine, because it was nice to see something different than just her being possessed in the first one again.
Yeah.
I never felt like in one of the things that kind of worked too in the first one was that the actress who played the girlfriend, Denise, I think her name is, something like that. In the movie, in the character in the movie, she's she has real I'm just moving with my boyfriend chemistry with Marlon Wayans at the beginning of that movie, and she does a good job of giving you a baseline of how normal she is and how regular she is, that when she gets possessed it's really noticeable and it really shows off. In the new movie, he has a new girlfriend who has 2 kids. The new girlfriend is a white woman, and that's really all we know about her. And literally that's all I know about her now. They're just
filler.
They make jokes about the fact that she's white and he's black, and that's really the extent of her character. There's a daughter character that's really underused and underplayed, and then there's a son character who's thrown in for. He actually has a fairly funny shtick, which is that he has an imaginary friend who talks black, and sometimes that can be funny. I'm kind of a sucker for bad words coming out of children's mouths.
Yeah,
that cracks me up when it happens.
I think it's interesting you talk about in the first one. Like I said, I haven't seen it, but with the girlfriend actually being able to see her normal, I feel like in this one, for the most part, we never really saw anybody be normal.
Yeah.
Even from the get-go, the youngest boy, he's obviously got this weird thing going on with his imaginary friend. The daughter was normal for a bit, just being a normal, angsty teenage girl, and then that didn't last too long, really, before she just went off the deep end like everybody else.
Yeah, it kind of is like the Hot Shots and Hot Shots 2, where Hot Shots kind of starts out a little normal and then it ramps and ramps, and Hot Shots 2 is just insane all the way through. And with this one, I think what they did at the beginning was important, because they had to tell you what happened to get from what happens at the end of the first one to him moving in with this new his new girlfriend and his new the new family. But the other thing that does is it sort of, like you said, it takes it to 10 right off the bat, and then they can only slow it back so far without losing anything. The funniest scene in the entire movie is when they're moving into the house,
which is like 10 or 15 minutes in.
Yeah, it's very early on in the movie.
The dog.
Yeah, the dog.
Something with the dog, yeah.
Okay, so in the trailer, the dog gets hit by the safe, but that's not what we're talking about.
It goes so far beyond.
There's something that happens beyond that is just so hilarious. It's just there's the sight gag of the safe, and there's another sight gag, and then there's yet another sight gag, and it's great. That's my favorite scene.
I was thinking, I think probably two of my favorite things that they parodied fairly successfully, I think, is one, showing how inept the demon was at times, and some of his other failed hauntings.
That was another good shtick.
That was good, and then also, and they didn't really draw your attention to it, and they didn't point it out specifically, but there's definitely a parody going on where he's watching this film of what happens with his demon, and you have to be wondering who's filming that. So and in that sense, they were parodying the whole found footage thing, because who's standing there filming this demon messing everything up, and that itself is a pretty amusing as well.
Yeah, I thought that, and that was like a forgettable thing that you mentioned. It's like, yeah, that worked. Like he finds these film reels, and he's watching them, and in a horror movie, this would be like where you see what happened to the family before, and what it is it's this guy in a mask who is a complete failure at mass murder. He can't drown people, he can't hang people, he can't set them on fire. He ends up hurting himself most of the time, and it's just all this kind of slapstick humor. There's some fairly strong like in the movie, which is common in Wayans Brothers movies in general. The Scary Movie series had some of that. They made it fun. I liked the joke they made about Scary Movie.
He's like, stop making scary movies.
He's like, why do they keep making scary movies without the Wayans?
Yeah.
They're terrible.
I'm on board for that kind of meta humor. That was good.
Yeah.
I liked it. But I enjoyed the movie more than I thought I would. I think it's one of those things that, and the way that I watched I didn't see the first one in the theater. I saw it on home video, and it's very much a movie that like I watched in 2 sittings. Mm-hmm. Like you
can imagine that. Yeah, I was getting like a little bored and fatigued of the movie. Yeah.
They do a good job. I was about done with the whole premise, the whole concept of it. And they turned things around and started spoofing The Conjuring. They introduced the like exorcist and psychic husband and wife team, and that didn't like add a whole lot to the plot, but it changed things up just enough. There was like just enough of a change in dynamic that it kept me interested again, I guess.
Yeah,
just to see where it was going to go with that, and it meets some new characters finally, because it seemed like it had been a while since we'd seen something besides Marlon Wayans screaming
at Jamie Presley,
running around being crazy.
Yeah.
So that's our review. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out all the other reviews we have on YouTube. I also have written reviews and all of the videos of movies that we reviewed on DaleMaxfield.com. Thanks for watching. See you next time.